Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome to Organizational Excellence's Career Bootcamp webcast series. Today's session is entitled Resume and Application Preparation with Deborah Jansen. Before we begin the program, let's take a look at the program we'll be using for those who may not be familiar with it. In the upper right-hand corner of your screen, you should see a GoToWebinar control panel. Now, starting from the top of that panel, you'll notice radio buttons to choose between telephone and mic and speakers for the audio portions of today's program. Please make certain that mic and speakers options are selected. If you find the volume right now is too loud or too soft, click the settings hyperlink to adjust the volume on your computer. Now, below the control panels, you'll see a raised hand button. If you're asked at any time during the presentation to raise your hand, clicking this button will allow the presenter to see your raised hand. And toward the bottom of the control panel, you'll see a chat box where you may submit any questions you may have. Simply type your question and either press your enter key or click the send button. Now, the program audio or visual may lag due to network congestion. In most cases, the program will catch up once the congestion clears. Please know that we'll also upload a recording of this program to Learning Zone after the session. You may find at some time that your GoToWebinar control panel may collapse to a smaller control bar. If you'd like to expand the control bar to the control panel in order to type a question, just click on the orange arrow at the top of the control bar. All right, so for today's presentation, Deborah Jansen joins us from the Talent Management and Recruitment Branch, where she is a Senior Human Resources Analyst responsible for recruitment selection of a broad variety of jobs, including executive level positions. Deborah continues her own professional development, staying current and connected with the public human resources profession by serving on the executive board of the Southern California Public Management Association Human Resources, otherwise known as SCPMA-HR, where she's currently the 2012-2013 chapter president. Deborah is also currently serving her third term as the Personnel Commissioner on the Santa Monica College Personnel Commission. And now we'll hear from Deborah Jansen. Deborah?
Bob, thank you very much. Bob, thank you very much. Bob, so everybody knows out there, Bob Martin is a member of that great team and great district resource, Organizational Excellence, which is presenting this program as part of a series of webinars dedicated to you, district employees' career. So I want to encourage everyone, and thank everyone for participating today, but I want to encourage everyone also to look for the other presentations that are tapping into some of the natural resources we have here at the district and are presented to help you develop and work on your career. So resume and application preparation webinar. This particular set of topics has a special interest for me, and I have a special passion for it, because I have a very enthusiastic feeling about our district employees. And when asked to present on this topic, I thought I could help out folks throughout the district in really framing their presentations of their professional background in a way that benefits the district. It is something that I feel strongly about, and it's part of my everyday career. And as an analyst, one of the things we really want to do is we want to see the people inside of the district really shine. So I'm going to be talking about a lot of things today. And one of the caveats before I start rolling is I want you to note 3 things that you want to do after you listen to this presentation. You don't have to do it all. Just pick 3 things that really are going to benefit you and that you can apply immediately, because there's going to be a prize at the end of the presentation for those who let me know that they have done this. My email is available at the very end of the presentation, and if you can, kind of demonstrate to me that you've done these 3 things, and it can be anything that I presented today, we'll go ahead and you'll get a free review of your resume. How about that? And since I'm kind of a pro at this, what do you think? It's something that I can offer. So if everybody's good with that, we're going to start our program. So the objectives today are going to be really to discover what a resume and an application really is. Learn tips to create and update your resume and application, and learn how others see your resume and application. And of course, here in the district, our process is always going to include our application, and our recruitment and selection process is always going to include the application. So, we have a new eRecruit system. We'll talk more about that later. But it's really essential for you as a professional. That's the tool that you're going to be using to put your professional foot forward. So that's why I kind of tied that in there. Well, here is a Google Earth. On this next slide, we're going to have a photograph of, certainly some of you are going to recognize it, a satellite photograph of the Beaudry building. And I'm using this to demonstrate my presentation concept this morning. I'm going to give you like a 40-foot or 40,000-foot satellite version of what I'm talking about. I am interested in giving you some concepts, kind of toggled down or tied down to some practical things you can do. I want you to remember the ideas that I'm presenting so you can apply them throughout your career.
The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Some folks will think that this is going to be too general. I want you to kind of think holistically and throughout your career. You may not be with the district forever, but I'd like to be able for you to think back and realize that you developed a lot of the seeds of your professional career here. So I'm going to learn a little bit about you now, and by a show of hands, and there's a vehicle in which you can do that in your webinar program, how many folks have their resume in front of them? And it's right there. And I can see that on my end. So if you have it in front of you, and it even counts if you're scrambling to print it out. And you don't, that's okay too. Just want to get an idea. And I also want to get a sense of what classifications people are working in that are out there in the audience. Now some of the folks, I recognize your name, and I have pretty good recall, so I probably know what classification you're in. But if you want to go ahead and type that in, I'll be able to see that. So I'll give folks a little bit of time to do that, and I'll move forward. And I really want to get a sense of what you're looking for. So at any time during my presentation, if there's something you want me to refocus on, kind of type it in the box there, and Bob will give me a high sign, and I'll be able to understand if I need to refocus. And with that, we're going to roll. First thing I want to share with you, and I have to take this under consideration for myself, so I really want everyone to take a deep breath when we start talking about doing a resume or an application, because honestly it's a little stressful. There's an orientation that it is the most important part, or you really have to do it right, or you really have to be perfect at it, because it's the perception that that's the tool that moves you forward. But what I really want to share with you is that if you take a really deep breath and you kind of relax about it and you work on it throughout your career rather than the weekend before you need to submit it, it will help you kind of put it in its proper place. It's not just a simple piece of paper that has lists of your past jobs. As I state here on the slide, it's about you and how you've performed and what you've accomplished. And that's the orientation throughout the entire job market. We're moving towards them being just a chronological list of dates and job titles, but a documentation of where you were, what you did, and how you did it. And employers are now looking for evidence of the results of what you've done. There's no more, we don't have a stable work environment where we understand job titles. Now certainly a lot of people are still plumbers and secretaries, but sometimes we just don't know what that job did. So this gives you an opportunity, if you're thinking about your career like this, gives you an idea to really put your best foot forward. And it's really, as I say, it's a marketing piece and a tool that places you in the best possible light, and it can be customized for the particular classification or job that you're recruiting for or looking to hire on. I encourage people to be gentle with themselves, and that does bring out the best. We have to be remembering that this is something that we're working on throughout our career. And ideally, your resume and your application, and especially your application, is the prep work you're doing for the interview. So if you have a well-prepared application, well-prepared resume, and you have created it, you are orienting yourself to be able to presenting yourself in that same light. First things first, this is a mind map. I don't know if folks have seen these. What they are is a depiction of a career, and this person is a graphic artist. So they're using, there's a lot of creativity and tools in this field. But sometimes when we think about our professional backgrounds, we really don't think of them in pictures. So sometimes to get yourself going, encouraging you to get a big piece of picture out and some crayons and maybe colored highlighters and kind of start in the center and draw. You start drawing a map similar to this on the tools you use. Are you using spreadsheets? Are you using the computer? Are you using perhaps a tool, if you're in a profession that uses tools, physical tools, are you using those tools? Are you using a particular skill set? Are you particularly persuasive? Are you a problem solver? Kind of use all those kinds of words to kind of draw a map about you, and it sometimes helps see how broad your scope is and how you influence others. This is something that kind of starts your mind rolling and starts you going as far as mapping the career you have now and that you want in the future. And one of the things I want to connect with people, because I see a lot of folks in the pool at the district are interested in moving from the career family they're in. They want to make a jump. They want to make a jump or are interested in making a jump to supervision or management. And one of the ways of doing that is understanding what you do now and what that other job involves. And that's for folks in the analytic field, that's a gap analysis. You do what you are, what you want to be. You figure out the difference. So a resume is going to share a lot today. It's going to share the A to Z. And it's really the professional you. And it's really changing from something that was on paper with ink or printed out a computer, really to virtual. And we'll touch on the virtual resume, which is really becoming the wave of the future. I want folks to start to orient around the space that a resume or an application contains. And what I mean is if you look down at your resume, just like I would look down at your resume, it's pretty contained. It's 8 by 11, not a whole lot of space there. Traditionally, you're allowed to, kind of the style now is kind of moving from 1 page to 2 page. I want you to look at that as space, and it's like real estate. You want to put your most important and your most valued information up front, and you want to make it look like a model home. You want it to make it look crisp, error-free, easy on the eyes, and accurate. So let's start with some nuts and bolts. Now this sounds like a lot of work, but I'll tell you, my view on most things like this is you got to do it sometime. And, and for folks that know me and my style, when folks aren't successful in one of my recruitments, I really encourage, not everyone takes me up on this, but for them to give me a call so I can talk to them about how they did in the recruitment, what the raters or evaluators saw, observations I might have had in looking at their material, and ways they can improve. So I'd love people to assess themselves. And if you can't do it for yourself, ask people who care about you, the boss you have that says you're doing a great job, your colleagues say, hey, good move, your husband, your wife, people in your family that observe how you work and how you talk about your work. Maybe someone you went to school with. Maybe there's someone you just, in my case, maybe it's someone I call up and I give some information. Hey, you did a great job on the exam. And they say, hey, no, thanks a lot. I really appreciated you relaxing and making me, feel very calm and relaxed about it. Those little hints and feedback kind of gives us an idea where we are in our career and what we do every day. Then a lot of folks want to promote. So that's the answer to where do you want to be? And I have some hints for you on that. LA Unified has an extensive 1,200 item database of classifications. 1,200 individual jobs that have classification specifications already prepared. If you see a job you want, I kind of jokingly say this, but I really do mean it. Print out that classification specification, spec, print out the one you're in now, take a highlighter and start highlighting the things you have in your old job that you want in your new job and you don't have. Kind of look at the difference between those things because those are the clues of how you are going to move forward. And then the next item on the list is map out how you want to get there. So there's a gap. So you got to look at what that new job has that you don't have and where you can find it. So I think we have a question out there.
Well, Chris was asking if you could give a path to that.
That's a good question. It's a mechanical process, but there's a lot of ways you can cue yourself. And this sounds like such a simple thing to do, but all of us in passing, if maybe just momentarily, think, oh, I'd kind of like to do what she does. Hey, that sounds like a cool job. I wish I could do that. It may be some friend that you have. It may be someone at the district. It may be, I encourage everybody to go to monster.com and, like a fantasy, pretend you could have any job and look at what you're drawn to in a job and print out or save that job description and that kind of path, put it right next to you and see why, what you need to do to get there. Now that's more the idea of helping you organize yourself mentally, because the path that you are going to follow is a little bit more rigorous. Jobs now are everywhere. It used to be LA Times was, an inch and a half thick with different jobs. But now jobs are everywhere. So that means you have to look everywhere. And one of the things I encourage people to do, and we don't do it because we're used to coming to work, working, and leaving, is networking. And it's almost like a scary word for people, especially if you're an introvert. But I really want to encourage you to, if you find something you're interested in doing and you know yourself well enough to know what you're missing, you need to yourself make a decision on who may help you with that. And folks who have worked with me know I'm very open to taking calls, reviewing your resume, giving you ideas to kind of connect the dots. I had someone that called me actually last night for a debriefing on their candidacy. They participated in one of my exams and they wanted me to share with them some of the feedback. They were successful. So I didn't need to deliver, the bad news, but they took me very seriously when I said, call me even for the good news. So one of the things, she was making a career from a journalist, and she wanted to expand out into media relations. And one of the things in passing she said is, she goes, well, I have a huge number of contacts in Facebook and in LinkedIn. And I said, oh, really? I go, so tell me more about that. And it ended up she had an extensive number of contacts. And when I asked her, well, do they know you're looking for work or looking for a new career or looking to transition into media relations from journalism, she goes, no. I said, well, are you a member? Where'd you go to school? She goes, well, I went to SC's journalism school and I went to UCLA. And I go, so are you a member of their alumni associations? And if you connected with anybody who's in media relations there, maybe an alumnus who, has offered up, how I'll talk to somebody and I'll help them out if they want an informational interview? No. Oh, okay. So by giving little answers and questions with her, we were able to find out she had a very large group of people that she could tap into to find out a little bit more about careers. And I said, well, you're on LinkedIn, so one of the things I first mentioned to folks is the concept of 6 degrees of separation, which simply means that we're connected to more people than we think we are, not directly, but perhaps indirectly. And once you know what you're looking for, it's a little easier to think of LinkedIn as a way of really linking in. An exercise, and it may serve to respond to the question of what path, is that I ask everybody, and it sounds like a bigger task than it really is, but I'd like everybody to write a list of 50 places they'd like to work or jobs they'd like to do. And 50 seems like a daunting number, but those spaces get taken up pretty quickly. Because once you know where you want to be, it's easier to find somebody who's already there. If you want to work for Google, it's easy to look then at your LinkedIn network and find out who may be at Google right now. If you want to work in education at USC, It's easy to find out. Then you have a map to get to somebody there. The thing about networking is you want to build your boat before the flood happens, so you're already tucked into it with your little supplies. And you know, you're in, most folks here at the district were fairly secure. And we are in positions where we have a little bit more, when we come home, we generally don't have to worry about are we going to have a job the next day or going to make our quarterly profits. So we do have some time to focus on our careers. So I encourage everybody to do that. And I'll kind of move through the program now and hope to address a stronger response to giving you guys a path. Get organized. A lot of times being disorganized creates more drama and trauma than necessary. Gather up everything you have that's job related. You should have a folder that has every class description of every job that you've ever held at LA Unified, every hey, that a girl, that a boy letter you've gotten or email from your supervisor. It should have every little certificate, and not little certificate, every certificate or every notation of your graduate degree, any class you've taken in organizational excellence, any program you've participated. One of the questions I usually shout out to my groups is, how many people in the room have used their educational reimbursement this year? And a couple of hardy souls will raise their hand and say they spent the full $500, $600, or $700. And for the folks that haven't, I want to find out how many years they've been with the district. And then we do the math equation. The years you've been employed and eligible for that times the dollar amount. And I've had people be at the district 9, 10, 12 years, never use the educational reimbursement. At the same time, they're wondering why I haven't been promoted, why I'm not doing as well as I'd like to on the exams. And what you're finding out is they've left $9,500 sitting on the table, $5,000 sitting on the table, $3,000 sitting in the table of unrealized professional growth money. Some of us I know that went through the CSUN MPA program, Masters in Public Administration, used the educational reimbursement for 3 years. For me personally, that shaved off $2,100 off of my tuition. It's the best money the district ever spent for me. And I know my other colleagues in my program at the time did that as well. But you should have a plan at the beginning of every fiscal year or every calendar year, whatever works for you, how you're going to spend out that money to develop your career. Because one of the things that adds to is your accomplishment list. That is something you've accomplished. An accomplishment list can be big and it can be small, but it's the thing, we're humans and we are so busy here with all the things that go on with our regular everyday lives plus what we do at work, we forget our accomplishments. So one of the things I encourage is people to have a fire engine red folder by their computer. Anything that comes in, an email, a congratulations, I may call you up and say, hey, I really appreciate you. You really helped me out yesterday. Or your boss may give you a, hey, that was a great program. Write it down. Because let's fast forward. You're sitting in an interview at LA Unified and you're before a panel, and I'm going to ask you as the interviewer, not as Deb the analyst, but I'm an evaluator or a rater, and I'm going to ask you to give me an example of a time when you ran a complex project that involved many different elements. It was perhaps across the district, and you successfully resolved any conflicts. Well, you're going to be human, and you're going to look, and your eyes are going to bolt upwards. You're going to go to the base of the brain, the reptilian brain. Your legs are going to start to start pumping with blood, and you're going to do the fright or the flight, and you're going to want to jet out of that room. But if you had that accomplishment list and you'd been looking at it for the 2 or 3 days before, you probably could find some pretty good evidence or examples of how you accomplished and responded to that question. So the accomplishment list serves many purposes, including when you're feeling a little blue and going, why am I doing this? It gives you a little that a girl, that a boy. Kind of makes you feel how you're adding to the bottom line. And fundamental to this is the district is moving in a direction of accountability. And one of the things accomplishment lists provide is your response to how you are being accountable to the district's mission. You can clearly trace back the DNA on how you as a district classified staff person are tying into the mission of all students succeeding and student success. Create a master resume. This is what I say this is what I call kind of your honest document. That document has every job you held, every working out of class or provisional assignment you had, has every supervisor's name, every pay range you were in. It's a very accurate description. And for if you were a barista at Starbucks back in '97, it should be on there. It's a way of holding all of your information about what you've done in your professional life in a place, because you never know when you need to tap back into something. And you can also start to see patterns. If you're in the role, a position where you're looking at it for a new career, that's a place where you can go to mine for information. You can really look at what you've enjoyed doing, what you like doing. You know, the barista job, you know, if you loved jumping to that counter, if you loved providing service, if you loved whipping around to the various machineries at your local Starbucks and brewing up something that's going to dazzle the customer on the other side of the counter, that's saying something about you. That's saying that you are registering high in customer service. Maybe you like the mechanics of creating something. Maybe there's something about service that's really resonating with you. And conversely, if you're someone who really likes to kind of be in the back room, you know, creating recipes or planning different creations. You know, I have a colleague that her career, it was in college, she was a lab technician, but her job was to do all the prep work, because it was a cooking course, to do all the prep work for the students when they came in. So she was back in the back room chopping up pineapples and measuring out spices. And so when the students came in, they would have a tray of whatever the appropriate ingredients are. And she loved that job. She would go shopping for it. She'd do the preparation. She'd lay everything out. And it was something that not everybody can do that kind of job. And it really speaks a lot to her shopping, her organizing. You know, she was able to, you know, help plan the menus. So there's things that we do in our lives that we kind of forget that we do. That master resume is how you're capturing them. And it's invaluable. Keep them, gather them, and hold them dear. These are the folks that are going to speak to not only what you did, when you did it, but how you did it. You want to keep these people fresh. One of the things I noticed is there's a lot of movement in the district, and especially for my folks here who are in school sites. Sometimes the schools are moving around, the staffing's moving around so much, you lose touch with people. But these people can be valuable resources for you. So make sure that you keep connected to them. Certainly getting a letter of reference is not a bad idea. And I encourage people to do that. But the other good thing is just plain keeping in touch with them. That's where LinkedIn is a successful tool. I went to a SHRM conference, which is a Society for Human Resources Management. It's a big private sector human resources organization. Their conference was in Las Vegas. And I was standing in line, and it is literally 40,000 people are at that activity. And I was standing in line, and there was a gal there that didn't have cash. So she could pay for, we were standing in line getting a snack, you know, a cup of coffee. And so I said, no, don't worry about it. I'll pay for it. So we started chatting in line, and she works for Federal Express out of the South, out of Atlanta. Started chatting, both HR people. She's in private sector, I'm in public sector. And I just really had a nice rapport with her, and we shared a lot of things in common related to our professional careers. And I thought, well, you know, I don't know if I'll see her again, because, you know, the 40,000 people, I don't know what program she's participating in, but, you know, I just really kind of struck it up with her. So I thought, well, how can we keep in touch? She goes, are you on LinkedIn? And I go, yeah, I am. And she goes, I'll link into you when I get back into Atlanta. And sure enough, we've been keeping in touch through LinkedIn and occasional emails. And the promise is that there's not this conference, but what, you know, we kind of made a deal that we'd go to the next SHRM conference and meet up there. But this is something that's somewhat remote, but I've asked her HR questions, and it's just kind of nice to know that you can connect. When you have references, they're even more valuable to you than this, kind of new friend that I met professionally at and randomly at a conference. So keep in mind that build your references. If there's someone that you know that you don't know if you'll be able to keep in touch with it, link in with them. You may not keep in touch with them every single day or every single month or maybe a few years, but you'll be able to figure out where they are and how to locate them. And that's what you want to do. You want to keep your network alive. Resume and applications. Okay, we're getting down to it. Now, I'm hoping you guys can see my little visual there. And it's designed to say, are you plugged in? Are you current? And we don't mean up to date. We mean the material that you have has to electrify now. We have paper resumes and applications. We have virtual. LinkedIn is an example of virtual. One thing I'll just pop in here so I don't forget to share with you, make sure your paper resumes, your application, and your LinkedIn profile all match. They represent you in different ways to different audiences, but your facts need to be consistent. Certainly not here at the district, but private employers will ping you, meaning your resumes against your virtual resume, your LinkedIn resume, or your Facebook site. So make sure everything is consistent. There's even resumes that are business sides. I'll show you an example of I went to a conference and one of the folks I met, we're sitting next to each other in a presentation, and instead of a resume he pulled out his business card, and I'll show you in a little bit what that looks like. And QR codes, kind of quick response codes. That's something that started, and I'll show you an example of that later if you're not familiar with it, but started in the auto industry. Years ago, where they could code all the various parts. So now they've migrated into a factor of a resume where you can put your entire resume in the form of barcodes, and I can kind of scan you and I get a whole picture of what you do and how you do it. Accomplishment list, we've mentioned. It's in big yellow bold letters because it means a lot to me, because it is the way you prove your success. And in a district like LA Unified, when you're sitting in an interview chair, especially as a district employee, usually you come into the room, you sit in the seat, and it's a little warm. Well, if it was a dual recruitment, that means there might have been an external candidate out sitting in that seat. That seat's warm because they probably lit that panel on fire because they are prepared for the interview. So as a district employee, don't assume the person on the other side of the table knows what you do and how you do it. Your accomplishment list is going to help you remember and help it make it real when you bring it into the actual interview. 90-second elevator speech. They're called different things. I use that phrase to refer to, if I was to ask you what you did, you could tell me in 90 seconds what you did. And I'm going to repeat something a few times in the presentation going forward. Put your most important work at the top of your list. Because honestly, when you wonder how class and compensation assigns your salary, they do it on the highest level duty you do. So if you're in a career that you answer the phone a lot and you're an administrative analyst, and that's the thing you spend your time doing, and you put that first on your resume, or it's the first thing out of your mouth when I ask you what you do, I'm wondering why you're getting paid to be an admin analyst. Focus your career, the duties you do every day, and even if you're doing that every day, start to talk to your boss about, hey, I need to get back to what I'm being paid for, because that's how you're being represented, and that's where you're going to be developing your career muscles. And down there, a cute little toolbox there, competency toolbox. So those are the kinds of things you need to learn to use to speak about yourself. Those are the language you need to use. This is my application resume bingo. Now, I can probably speak nonstop, so I'm going to do a shout out if anyone has any questions. And even at affirmative, if you feel that am I on track for you? Are people resonating with what I'm saying? Are you kind of drawing up your list of 3 things you want to start to implement? Give us a shout out. Get organized. Referred to that a little bit earlier. Make sure your papers are all in the right place. Contact information. Make sure that the information I, as an employer, can get a hold of you. At the top of your resume, I'll tell you some don'ts. Don't put your address. You can put Los Angeles, California. I want an email address. I want to see if you have a Twitter account, put that Twitter account on there. If you have something, your LinkedIn address, put it on there. I want to show that broadcast that you're current, that you're accurate, that you care about your career. Logistically, put that information on the second page too. If I lose the 2 pages, I want to make sure I find out who's this person with this fabulous second page. I know about your career and your education, but I don't know who you are. Make sure you put information clear and easy to find. Achievements instead of responsibilities. And in a public agency, we're a very structured system, so we tend to think in terms of tasks or responsibilities. And I don't want to encourage you to pull completely away from this, but start to think of yourself as, at the end of the day, what did I achieve today? I may have been responsible for assisting my administrator in the running of the department, but what did I accomplish? Did I create a spreadsheet or a special program that allowed the district, a particular district program to work more efficiently? That's the accomplishment. That's what I want to hear if I'm a rater on the other side of the table. I want to hear you say what your accomplishment was and the tool that you used to get there, because that's how I'm going to see you. Talked about highest level duties first. I cannot emphasize this enough. And it will unfurl or it will throw you off the bubble so much if you do not do this. The district uses, in the Personnel Commission, we do a lot of training and experience evaluations. You've all heard the term T&E. It's a paper screening. We'll ask you often to do things such as complete your resume, submit, application, submit, perhaps answer some questions, provide a cover letter. Maybe we'll ask for questionnaires, but I'm just talking about the T&E. What we are looking for in there is your best foot forward. And I mean this in a loving way, and that's my cute way of saying if anybody's guilty of this, and I know some of you are, but I'll show you how I'll tell you how I view it. If you cut and paste your duty statement out of the classification, you're not showing me your work. You're showing me my colleague Joan in Class and Comp's work, because I know how hard she worked on that classification spec. So what you're doing is replicating that for me. And some of you, and if you're out there, keep your head low. I had one person put the letter, the personal pronoun I, for each of the duty statements, failing to put the verb, in other words, I prepare. She kept the prepared in a capital P. So again, it doesn't tell me anything. Those are guidelines that create our classification system, and that's how we organize work and duties, and they're extremely valuable. But they are guidelines, and I want to see it in your own language. I want to see you using those guidelines and spinning them, and that's a negative word, but I don't mean it in a negative way. I mean, I want you to use that to hang on that hanger, you know, the clothing of what you do. Use it as a guideline. Give me specifics. Give me an example. Take that duty statement and give an example of what you do to make that real. That is your voice, and I want to hear your voice. And when you see in there, it's in the yellow on the second line, analyze job ads. One of the reasons I throw that in there is because I really want you to look at job ads that we put out. When people will say, what are you looking for? I am very good at tracking. I can explain, even if a person's not successful or maybe a little frustrated, I will tell you, they'll go, well, what are you looking for? And I will say, I'm looking for what I put in the job bulletin under ideal candidate statement. So you know, I'm going to make my slides available afterwards, so a lot of the things that are on this resume bingo, you'll get a chance to look at. So I'm going to move on a little bit further now, but I want to draw your attention to the corner of that bingo card. Use action verbs. www.quintcareers.com. Action verbs, bring it alive. I have a lot of people out there that in their in their applications, they will just do random statements. I want to know what you did to that phrase. Put an action verb to it. So keep in mind that the reason I put that there is because that's what we're looking for. And now, this is something that I learned. We're always learning. One of my colleagues, when I asked him, how do you know to do that? And he goes, I YouTubed it, Deb. When the gas went out in my place and I couldn't figure out, believe it or not, how to light the furnace. Yeah, you may chuckle, but it was an ancient furnace, and I remember Edwin's words, YouTube it. So I go, you know, I have an hour with you today, but in 7 minutes, this guy on YouTube did a fabulous presentation on writing a resume. And all you have to do is go into YouTube and Google resumes, and there's a tremendous amount of stuff out there. Some of it is, you know, advertising. They want to write your resume for you, but you can get in 7, 8, 4, 3 minutes some pretty fabulous presentations. So I'm going to encourage you to do that. Get a lot of facts that I won't be able to drill down on with you today. Now, I made reference to kind of the new world of resumes. We're not in Kansas anymore. This is my LinkedIn page, and from a few months ago, and you'll see, if you've not seen it before, there's me. I would share an update. I went to my conference. I put in there attending my SCPMA conference. Hope to see all of you there. You know, I highlighted some of the speakers in the presentation. You'll see my colleagues there. Jeff Todd, we'll be talking about him later. He's somebody I met at a conference. And it was a way for me to keep in touch with Jeff and what he's doing. And that is a pretty remarkable guy. I've learned a lot just connecting with him and on how to do my job better. This is Jeff Todd. Now, I don't know if this came out as clearly as it could, but this is a business card. The top of it is the front of it. So this is his 3 by 2.5 inch business card that tells you about what Jeff does up at the Lawrence Berkeley National Labs in recruiting. But the back of his is his QR codes for LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter. So if I just wanted to, take my smartphone, click it on there, I'd pull up his LinkedIn profile, Facebook profile, and Twitter. So that's how we have to start thinking about our backgrounds and the agencies we represent. So here it is, Nancy Drew, a favorite of my childhood. But this is a way, what we're really thinking. This is just a part of what we're really thinking when we see your resume or application. And you've gotten some hints from me already, but we'll move forward. I'm looking for some logistics, that you did the job, your work history and your accomplishments. Can you do the job? I'm looking for career progression, training, education. If I see you're doing a master's, if I see you're actively taking courses in your professional fields, that is going to say something. And it should be known, and you learn this sometimes on the day of, but continuous learning and committing to your career that way may be a competency we're evaluating. So make sure you are sharp as a tack on that. And will you do the job is the pitch and the references. The enthusiasm, the presentation of your material. You project something with it. Passion can be projected, and willingness and being excited about it and enthusiastic about it in your examples. That's how we can start to read that there's a willingness to do the job and you're worth taking a chance on. Record summary is a concept that's put forth by Peter Wendell. Work Strong, your personal career fitness system. I'm using some of this information from him. He likes folks to concentrate on 3 aspects of their background: your skills, abilities, and competencies. And then your experience using those skills, abilities, and competencies, and your accomplishment using these skills, abilities, and competencies, and how you do it on the job. This is a program into itself, and you're going to all have to forgive me for not going into any more depth on this. But that may be included in that prize if folks contact me for that free resume review. I'm going to circle around to our eRecruit application system, and it's this is something I've added to the program, and it was a result of I ran a recruitment, and folks, you may know who you are because I see some of familiar names. I ran a recruitment for a promotional-only exam, and as part of that, I ended up getting a lot of information that I want to push back out to people. But before I go on, we have a question. Bob?
You might want to repeat this next to here on mic. The person's asking if they've been told references should be given only if asked. Do you agree?
We have a question out there. I've been told that references should be given only if asked. Do you agree? Let me frame my view of references. References are the folks out there in the universe that can document what you say is accurate and true and has value. Now, I certainly can get an impression from you, but they're the secondary sources. They're the people that verify it. My approach to references is you gather them up, and I agree. If you're asked for them, you present them, but you better have them. You better have them, and especially if you're moving around from job to job, location to location, these are people that you are your natural audience for providing validation. And I will share with you, in a closed system like LA Unified School District, references are something as simple as, Bob Martin, he is so smart, boy, that guy is a pro. Saying that in the elevator to my colleague and someone hears it. That's a reference. Now, it's not an official reference. It's embedded in my opinion, but that statement I made is something I believe. Now, I have evidence of that, how he presents himself as a colleague, how he, the skill set that he shares even in facilitating and running this program right now. It's an opinion I've had for most of the experience that I've, had to work with him, and even as I've observed him from afar. So that's a reference. So you're right, maybe only if you're asked. However, references are a lot more than the formal reference. So let's spin back to eRecruit. I am going to tell you that eRecruit is a dense system, but bear with us. It's what we got. It's what we use. So I'm giving you a little primer. You've all been there to the Candidate Career Start page. I'm going to tell you this is what the district uses to evaluate you. This is what we're looking at. This better look sharp, and it's a lot of work. Okay. You know how to get to it. This is a quick slide that kind of feeds into what you need to get there. This is a little application wizard that shows how you move through the different stages. This presentation time doesn't allow me to go into all detail, but I'm going to focus on experience here, because this is, when I ran the recruitment for promotional only candidates, I saw a lot of very sharp people who weren't presenting themselves in a way that really allowed me as a recruiter to really understand them, and I knew for a fact it was going to be daunting to our evaluators and raters. And let me tell you a scary fact. Recruiters and most human beings look at a resume and or application for 7 seconds. So if you don't sell your story in those first 3 lines, they're going to lose interest. Here's a little sun and satellite here. Your candidate profile is what we're talking about, and I'm specifically on your work experience. The candidate profile includes your work experience, list of education and skills, and everything automatically populates that. So when you change that, it changes everything that you haven't already submitted, and everything updates instantly. We have another question.
Yeah, if the application does not ask or request for a cover letter, do you recommend to prepare one for the job they're applying for?
This is my hint. The question is, if a cover letter has not been requested, do you need to present it? A couple of ways to do it. Let me just do logistics. You can embed it in your application, or you can put it as an attachment at the end. This is my little opinion on that. If you're trying to jump into another jet stream, another career path, if you're in the admin analyst family, you want to jump over into supervision or a higher level supervision or management, or you're in a technical clerical position, you want to jump to admin analyst, you have experience that somehow you think makes you a candidate, and if I look at your career track and I say, I'm not seeing that. Your resume may not demonstrate it and I can't connect the facts. I want to see a cover letter tie everything together, but make sure that if you're making reference to how you did something, you tie it back to a time and a place. And I got to tell you, in a cover letter, if you're interested in being more experienced, or a job that talks about project management, and you are somebody that runs the PTA at your child's elementary school, if you're working for your church annual Fall Festival, which is a huge project that works the entire year, and you are the chairman. If you are somebody in a nonprofit that is working, feeding the homeless every Saturday morning and arranging for volunteers, that, my friends, is a project. That is something you can bring up in your cover letter. So use it, but it better be specific, and do not address it to who it may concern. I would prefer you leave that blank or say, "Dear Human Resources Professional," but I'm not a "to whom it may concern." I'm a Deb. Okay, hope that helps. Let's go. I'm going to go back. I don't know if this is forbidden, but I've just gone back. We are looking at work location, work title, duties performed, tools used, accomplishment. That should be your checklist of what goes into each of your experience tabs. Someone had said to me, "Deb, I can only enter 4 jobs at a time, and I keep on pulling them in and out." And please, apology to the complexity of our system, but you can put a bazillion jobs in there. But I encourage you to make sure that you don't put a bazillion, because that's an awfully lot. But, you know, if you're a career employee here and you've been here for 15 years in 2 jobs, get it, there's 2 jobs there. But you want to make sure that you break things out in an appropriate way, and especially if you've moved around a lot and done different things, make sure you take advantage of being able to put multiple jobs in there. So this, once again, will be provided later as something that will guide you along. I should, as an analyst, a rater, an evaluator at the end of the program, should be able to look at your experience and say how and when you meet the entrance requirement as the first step. Minimally, that's what has to be done. And I must say something that I've not been able to spend enough time on it, so I want to pull it out and put a big highlighter on it. In the district, we are looking for a desired candidate, not the person that just meets entrance qualifications. So when you hear if you read in that job bulletin what the desirable is, or it'll be ideal candidate, desirable candidate, desired, anything around that, and we give a profile, that is what we're looking for. That's what you're looking at highlighting, and that's what you're looking to say, what am I now? What should I be? That should be your guideline, because we're pushing in our assessment process. That is the sun that I am trying to reach. That is where in my assessment I'm designing it to reach. Meeting the entrance qualification just gets you over, and folks have heard me say this, it's the first speed bump in the process. But now you're in the parking lot and the cars are starting to rev up, and now we're going to our starting stations. And you are competing in an open and competitive job or dual recruitment with people on the outside. So you've got to be on your game. Minimum requirements don't cut it. This is my profile. You'll see my career documented here. Santa Monica College, where I was an employee, and you can see my last entry. How ironic is that? I'm now a personnel commissioner for Santa Monica. Good thing about that is I pretty much know every single employee there. Small pool, about 400 people. So it kind of gives me an interesting perspective. But I'll tell you, it's a lot more fun being an employee than a commissioner. And then, of course, my career here at the district. So I could put endless, and you notice I put an appointment up there. If you were something like a chairman of your professional group, or there's other things you add that's work-related, or a lot of people do things on the side. I was talking to someone yesterday who told me that they did, among other things, restaurant reviews. And I go, where is that in your application? That's fun. So getting started. There are endless resources to help you do a great resume, do a great application. There is information everywhere. Online job boards, monster.com has tremendous resources. If you're in a college and university, you'll notice how I'm pushing people towards your resume and your application are really the prep for doing a great interview. And the reason that happens is because you're so prepared. You know yourself. You're able to express yourself. Okay, we have another question. Bob.
What's the most difficult obstacle for recent college grads?
That sounds like either a recent college grad or a parent. It's tough out there. It's a tough market. People are staying in the marketplace, and they are getting better and better educated because they're afraid to come out on the job market. What I'm going to tell you is, as a recent college grad, quickly, A lot of employers are looking for competent interpersonal competencies, initiative, customer service orientation, promptness, action and results focused, the ability to do the job well because you don't really know quite what you're going to do. And I appreciate people being candid with me. There's a lot of places that welcome entry-level people, so you need to identify in the marketplace who's hiring folks. The difficult obstacle is you don't know what you want to do, so you don't really know if you're enthusiastic about it or not, and you don't really know yourself. The district was very good at being a first employer. That's not so much the case anymore. And that's an excellent question, and I have a lot of passion for that. I can't give it the justice that you need, but I would tell you if you're a recent college grad, if you are not an alumni, you need to become one right now. You need to tap into every resource. And then there's another more subtle thing you do, and I get it all the time. I had someone call me from Cal State Northridge who was thinking about participating or going to classes there. So she called me about, like, what does it feel like once you have your MPA? And I spent time with her, and I said, you need to utilize, and you need to do what you're doing right now. Call strangers and ask them why and how. So workbook stores and libraries, cruise through them, look what resources they have and purchase them. Workforce centers for California, the EDD is partnerships with workforce centers, use them. Google it. If you want a job that is part-time, works with children, ages 3 to 5, and maybe some other parameter, put all those factors in Google and jobs, plus jobs, and see what comes back. Put in those action words or the things you're interested in the Google line and see what comes back. You may be surprised. Your ideal career may be a Google search away. Now, of course, I've talked through the entire program. So questions, I've gotten a few. Thanks, everybody who was interested in doing that. What I want to encourage people is you have my email address there. You know, I'm in Global. You have my phone number. Call me. I'm real. I put it out there. If you have learned 3 things, I want you to shoot me back what they are. But you have to not only learn them, but adults we learn by doing. So let me know what you've done, and I'll take a look at your resume. If you have any other questions, you can contact me directly. Bob will send out the presentation, and I know there's associated resources, kind of a do's and don'ts, which is a nice little document there to keep in front of you. And I think we are winding up. So I want to thank everybody for taking a chance on me and listening to the presentation, and I'm going to give my promo to my colleagues over in Organizational Excellence. They are a little jewel in the LAUSD crown. I am the first that's launching presenter for a series here, but there's another presentation and I think another one the week after that, so please participate in all of them. And that also goes on your accomplishment list. So what do you want? As my mother says, egg in your beer? No, there you go, 3 ways for you to build. And I'd encourage everybody also spend your professional growth money. And I have a bunch of ideas how to do that, but not enough time. Ah, such is life. So thank you, everybody. Appreciate you guys taking the time.
Okay, on behalf of Organizational Excellence, we'd like to thank all of you for participating in today's webcast. We'd appreciate if you'll return to Learning Zone to fill out a program evaluation, which you'll find under your My History tab in the Learning Zone. And while you're there, sign up for the remaining webcasts in the series. For example, next week we have test-taking strategies for classified jobs on May 8th, and then we have interviewing techniques on May 15th. Thank you for attending, and we'll stay around for a couple minutes in case anyone has any additional questions.